of work. Before we get started, I've got a few ground rules. Maybe this is your first YouTube live session, so just to let you know, I can't see you, I can't hear you, so the only way I know that you're there and that you're participating is the use of the chat. So please do participate. I guess that's my only ask of you today. You've given yourself this time to come and look into UX. So my ask is to participate in our questions and our brainstorming activities. And then if you have any questions as we go through, then make sure that you pop them in the chat as well. And we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. So don't panic if I don't answer it straight away. We'll gather through the questions and get through as many of them as possible at the end of the session. I've got a colleague, Lily, who's going to feed them through to me, so we'll have a look at them at the end. And after we've all worked together through the session, I'm going to ask for your feedback, because I want to know how's it gone for you and how can we make it even better. So before we finish, we will give you a link to give us some feedback so we can continue to make these sessions even better as well. A little bit of an icebreaker to get you used to using the chat. I would love to know how many of you are here. So how are you feeling right now? One word. And add that with, what did you have for breakfast? So for me, I am excited porridge. That would be what I put in, excited porridge. So how do you feel right now? And what did you have for breakfast? Pop it in the chat so I can start seeing who's logged in and how you're all feeling today. Excited porridge. Sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? I only just started eating breakfast actually at home. Started eating everything at home actually. Let's see, how are you all feeling today? Got a few coming through. We'll wait for a couple more as well. Oh, smoothies. I do like a smoothie. Tired smoothie. Few more things. Okay, how are you feeling? And what did you have for breakfast? Oh, here we go. I've got a few more coming through there. Tired scrambled eggs with Philadelphia. Nice one. Interested banana. Oh, good. Relaxed. Relaxed is a good way to feel. Busy toast. Oh, well, it's funny you should mention toast because we'll be talking about toast a bit later on. Okay, thank you for adding your thoughts, your feelings and your breakfast in to the session. So that's as easy as the chat is. Whenever I'm asking a question, the only way I know you're here is for your participation in the chat. So keep those thoughts coming throughout the session today. So who are we? Well, we are Upskill Digital, and Upskill Digital are a digital training, education and transformation agency. We provide tailored training programs on any topic for your workforce, and we're passionate about helping companies and people stay competitive in the digital age. And that's more important now than ever. So we do this by empowering people to adapt as roles change through the power of technology, and by delivering engaging, fun, practical sessions. Before COVID, that was a lot face-to-face, and now we're doing it through more digital means as well. We like to get people hands-on, and sometimes we ask you to shift your mindset so that we can align with this digitally disruptive economic landscape that we've all landed in. Where do we deliver? The short answer, I guess, is everywhere. We have over 200 digital experts located all over the world, and we can implement bespoke courses, or we've also got off-the-shelf, ready-to-go courses as well. So if you're a company watching today thinking, actually, we could do with some help digitally in this area, do come and have a look at Upskill Digital. Or maybe you're here today upskilling yourself And we've got lots of courses like this taster session that can really help upskill your digital skills for whatever role that you're doing, or maybe you're looking for new roles. So it really is a wide scope here today. So thanks again for joining. And Upskill Digital can help your business no matter what's going on, no matter where you are. So pop over and have a look. You can see on the screen there just some of the clients that we're working with at the moment. So what are we going to do today? We're going to have a look at what user experience is and why it's important. We're also going to look at what makes great user experiences. And I'm going to share with you a couple of tools today, 3 tools that you can use straight away after this session, that you can actually go and use to help enhance your user experiences. And then if you've really enjoyed this and you're thinking, well, I've had the taster session, I understand a bit more about UX and I want to know more, I've got a bit of a push in the right direction to help you make those decisions of what you should do next. Now, as I mentioned before, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the session where I'll collate all your questions from throughout the session and hopefully answer as many of them as possible. And I'll also be asking for your feedback. So what's worked well for this session for you, and what could we do to make things even better so that we can continue to bring you this content? Okay, so let's get started. What is UX? When you hear UX, what do you think? Pop that in the chat. What is UX? What is UX? Do you know what it means? What does it mean to you? What is UX? Okay, we've got a few more things coming in there. Yeah, nice. So user experience, yes, that's right. For me, UX is the overall experience of a person using a product, all the way from the thought to using it and any time they've interacted in between. So especially a product computer application, or in terms of how easy or pleasing has it been to use. Okay, and we're going to have a look a little bit more into and why is it important, because user experience is so important right now. Think about websites and web applications. They used to be more or less a online leaflet, right? But as our industry's grown, it's become so much more complex. So what used to be a one-way static medium has evolved into a really rich interactive experience. And so we have to think differently to how we used to design. If before the purpose was to be there and now it's to engage with people and get people interacting and feeling about a product, then of course we need to change the way that we think to design as well. So does this website give value? Is it easy to use? Is it pleasant to use? And these are the kind of questions that should run through the mindset of visitors. Well, they do, subconsciously or consciously sometimes, as they interact with products. And they form the basis of their decisions as well. And that then decides whether they're going to become a regular user. So user experience is how a person feels when interacting with a system. And UX designers study and evaluate how users feel about a system. So looking at such things as ease of use, perception of value, utility, and how efficient are the performance of the tasks. So it's creative. We want to identify how user needs and design ways to make it easier for them. And we need to be strategic as well, because we want to ensure that business needs and user needs are combined to make it capable for the users as well. And then this all needs to be human-centered, because if it's human-centered, then the user's going to enjoy and therefore keep coming back to the business. So we want to put all 3 of those things together. So who is using UX? Who practices UX? Well, actually, it's everywhere. And here's just a few examples of big businesses that use UX. But a UX process can be different from one UX designer to another, from one organization to another, and sometimes depending on the project within an organization as well. UX processes are an interactive method that helps you continuously improve and polish your designs. So it's not a one-step job, it's like a continuous thought. Okay, so that's sort of an overview. That's what UX is. It's about the whole journey, and I'm going to talk a lot about having a bird's eye view. So if you have a bird's eye view of the whole journey, have you thought about all the different steps? So that's the little general user experience, and I know a lot of you went and gave some comments there as well. Let's have a look what you said. You said user experience of your business, yep. How engaged a customer is of the project, I like that one. How easy or difficult and enjoyable it is for a customer to interact. Yeah, great. They're all great observations of UX. So let's go a little bit deeper into what UX is, and then we'll focus on how can you use it. Before I focus just on UX, I want to talk about UX and UI. Okay, and the reason I want to talk about these is because they're often mixed up, or sometimes people don't quite realize the differences. And I think that's because user experience or UX has evolved as a result of improvements to UI. So they work very closely together, and they are both needed to enhance the overall customer experience. At the most basic level, UI is made up of all the elements that enable someone to interact with a product or service. So things like the screen, the touch boards, the keyboards, and they use design to make technology make sense to the people who use it. Where user experience is more about the interaction of the user with the business and the product. It's the product and the services, and the design processes there make products and services centered around humans who interact with it. If you think about a sports car, right, UI is how it looks and the color, and the UX is the feeling when you're driving it. Okay, or let's go in more specific of a car. So we think about a button in the car. Now, UI designer might ask, what color should this button be? Where a UX designer might say, do we even need the button? And if we do, then why do we need it? And if it is really important, where should it go? And if it needs to go there, how often is it going to be used? Yes, there's a lot more questions of that user experience. So we want to try and define these two to make sure that we understand when focusing on user experience, it's about any point of that customer journey, that user journey, and how's that user feeling during that time, and can we enhance that? Can we enhance the user experience? So here we go. We've got Ken Norton, partner at Google Ventures, says UX design is focused on anything that affects the user's journey to solve that problem, positive or negative, both on screen and off. I think that's a really key point. UX is about responding to real problems strategically and then creating solutions. Okay, so from asking all these questions, why do we need that, and why would a customer want that, and why would you use that, we're able to work out problems and then creatively find solutions as well. Sounds fun, right? So I want to test. I know it's difficult for me to know if you're still with me, so let's see if this is making sense so far. I want us all to imagine that we're in a restaurant. Wouldn't that be amazing? So let's imagine we're in a restaurant. What could affect the user experience for you in a restaurant? Start popping them into the chat. What would affect a good user experience for you whilst in a restaurant? Now, it might be quite personal, and that's the great thing about user experience as well. It can be so broad, and you get ideas from things like this with brainstorming. So pop into the chat, what would affect your user experience whilst in a restaurant? I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay, let a few more come in. Okay, so we've got lots of different things coming in here, from lights being too bright, the closeness of table, volume of music, interaction with staff. Keep them coming. Lots of really great ideas, and you can see straight away how different each user can be as well. I've got a few here, so I've just brought out some basic ones. What have I got? I have got food, table, service, chair, utensils and lighting. So just 6 things that we may all experience when we are in a restaurant, in that wonderful restaurant we wish we were in. I want us to think about which items would come under user experience and which would be under UI, user interface. Now don't write your answers yet, but I want you to get them ready. So get them ready in the chat box now. Which ones of my 6, so food, table, service, chair, utensils and lighting, are UX and which are UI? Maybe write UX dash and the ones you think are UX, UI dash the ones you think are UI, and then I'll count you down and we're all going to send them in together. Okay, so I'll give you a few more seconds to get those ready. Now, user experience is anything that affects the overall experience. It's all about how it makes you feel. And UI, user interface, is a tangible tool, the aesthetic and the functional object. Okay, so get your answers ready. I'm going to count you down and we're going to send them in 3, 2, 1. Press send. Send them in. Let's see how you all do. Okay. Well done. How did you do? Now, obviously, UX and UI coexist. Okay. And as you can see here, the table, the utensils, and the chair come under user interface. Okay, they're tangible tools, whereas food, service, and lighting really affect how we feel. And a lot of you put into the chat, first of all, the things that would change how you feel about a user experience, which is great. You talked about the level of music and the interaction with staff. So that's all user experience. But they do coexist together, and when they're both working together, that obviously does enhance the user experience. Now, I know what you might say, well, actually, Leonie, if a chair was really uncomfortable and I spent my whole night fidgeting and being uncomfortable, then that's going to affect my user experience. And you've just said a chair is a user interface. Well, that's a perfect example of why they need to work together. Have you ever seen an amazing looking chair, but it's really uncomfortable to sit on for a long time? So that's where UI has done its job, but it hasn't used UX. So it looks great, but it's not fun or comfortable or great to use. So when those things combined, when somebody sits in the chair and goes, actually, this hurts my back a little bit, and then the UI design is able to adapt and change and make it useful to the user as well. Okay, brilliant. Well done for that. Thank you for participating. So why add UX to your skill set? Now, the first thing, and I love this, it improves people's experiences. Why wouldn't you want to make people feel good? Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes means understanding their problems. And when you understand someone's problems better, you're more equipped to come up with better solutions to their problems. So there's a direct correlation between product success in the market and user experience of the product. The better experiences you create for your customers, the happier they're going to be, and the more likely they'll recommend it to a friend. How many times have you had a friend recommend a company or a product or a service? So they must have felt something about that in order to want to talk about it. And that's what UX is doing. We want to move people from liking a product to loving it. It's not just about that product itself, but the whole journey around it, from thinking about it to researching it to finding it to looking at it to getting it and using it. The next thing UX gives you is problem solving. And if you think the more you use UX design processes, the better you become at problem solving. And practicing these processes helps you to problem solve better, test things out, learn from it, and it becomes a circular habit. The more you do it, the more you start doing it without thinking about it as well. And then lastly, it also enhances your strategic skills. So it improves your ability to plan for the development of business goals. It's also UX strategy involves mapping out and understanding what people or your customers actually think about an experience. So it's finding real information and doing something with it. So hopefully, no matter what's made you tune in today, whether it's because you want to personally upskill or whether you want to change some processes within your own business or change the way you design, whatever the reason is that you're looking at this today, you can take something away. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at, we've looked at what user experience is, but what makes a good user experience? So if it's going to take in so many things, how do we narrow that down? How do we start building something good if it's not specific? Well, I've got a few points that I want us to start on. Okay, so good user experience is seamless. So think again about that end-to-end journey, that bird's eye view from the thought of a customer all the way through the journey, anytime they've interacted with the tools, product, all the way through past experience as well. So you need to consider the end-to-end experience and the responses of the user, so their needs and their desires. Good user experience is empathetic, so it needs to be personal. You want to enhance a user satisfaction, and empathy is critical to be able to do this. Good user experience looks deeper into a situation to understand others' users' needs, but also their constraints as well. So problem solving, maybe thinking about how they connect with it and things like that. It's about carrying it out throughout user research, absorbing it, and then guiding it into your decision making. And then it needs to be accessible. So you need to consider accessibility by easing frustrations when interacting with a product or service. Because again, if it's a great idea but nobody can get to it easily, then it's not going to be used. So user experience needs to incorporate all of these things. And I'm going to talk about 3 tools now that you can take away and start using straight away. Now, I know that this goes at quite a pace because we've only got so much time today, but we will be recording this session, so you'll be able to ask questions at the end, but also rewatch it, or maybe if you've forgotten anything, make a note so you know where you want to go back to. Okay? So here's our tools. A quick overview of the 3, and then we're going to break them down. And then we've got some more brainstorming activities that I want us to do together. So these tools create meaningful user experiences, and they're not the only UX tools, but they're 3 we're going to look at today. The first one is called personas, and that's about understanding how different users interact in a user journey. Okay. The next one is user journeys, and that's a visualization of the user experience with a product or brand. And I like to think about this like a timeline, okay? So you have a timeline from that thought all the way through to the end of the process, and maybe then you want that to loop because you want them to be a returning customer. And the timeline, you can talk about every touch point that the user has with the product. But it has to be from the user's point of view, not the business point of view. Even though you incorporate the values of the business, you want to be focused on the user's feelings and thoughts and doing. Which leads us to empathy mapping. Now, empathy mapping is having a real understanding of how users feel, what they think, what are they hearing, what are they saying, what are they doing. So again, a little bit more than just putting your customer hat on, we're going into the minds of our users and really understanding them. And then you can put all three of these tools together, and suddenly you have design opportunities, business opportunities, or tweaks to something just to make those user experiences even better. Okay, you ready for the tools? Well, let's start with the personas. So a persona, and it's really important here that personas have to be real, okay? So they can't just be made up from anything. They need to come from research and really thinking about what your core audience, your key customer would want, would be thinking, would be feeling. So the users, which goals and characteristics need to represent the large needs of a larger group, right? So you create these based on your research in order to represent different users that might use your service, product, site, or brand in a similar way. And creating personas will help you understand your user needs, their experiences, their behaviors, their goals. So you really want to make sure that they're as realistic as possible. You want to avoid biases, because it's really easy for us to get carried away of creating this persona that we really like, and it's quite dramatic, and that's all okay as long as it's come from real target audience data gathered in research and interviews as well, which is a really important part of UX design, is our UX research. Now, you might be thinking, Leonie, I haven't got time for this research and I haven't got money for all of these interviews. That's okay as well, because there are other ways to do it. You don't have to be having lots and lots of interviews and spending loads of money on research. You could do it by looking online, maybe conducting research, looking at competitors on social media and seeing what type of personnel interacts with the brand in that way. So your persona might come from that kind of research. But it's important to remember, make your user persona as real as possible. So even though you're making it up, it has to come from thought out reasons and research. Okay, so let's break it down. What are we going to include in a persona? Okay, because persona represents user research and interviews, as we said, and it does need to incorporate both the user and the business needs. And that's really crucial to balance that, because we keep saying it's all about the user, and it is, but we still need to bring the business voice to whatever design we're doing or whatever focus we're looking at. So the first thing is a photo. Now you might think that's a little bit silly. Well, why do I need a photo of this made up person? But it really helps to represent them, and it will help you build their virtual identity. Honestly, it really, really changes. So make sure you get a photo. We want to give them a name. We want to give them a real name and an age. Again, really bringing that reality to the research process. A description. Now this part's really great because you can summarize your persona. So you can include their background of your fictional character. You can write about their current desires. What's their primary motivation for wanting to use your product or not needing it? You know, you need to have a look at the gaps there as well. And be creative, but base it on data and research. So I called it a fictional character because this isn't just one real person. Don't just choose one person that you know has bought your product. You want to base it on lots of data of a wide variety of users, and then focus on, if that's your core user, how can you help them? How can you help improve their experience? And then you want to look at their frustrations as well, because that's where we really get to bring our UX minds to play, is when we work out the persona's frustrations. So every persona represents different problems, and when you add them to this section, you'll really be able to work out their personal struggles and try to fill this column first almost and work backwards, because that's the part that's going to help us make improvements. So you'll see here I've got Charlotte, 28, project manager, single, desires more free time, works long hours, and is celiac. That's a really basic persona, but you can build and build from that as well. So personas, that's our first tool. It's quite simple, right? Our next tool is about the user journey. So to explain a user journey, I'm going to ask you to help me create one. So here we go. Now, I know that somebody mentioned they had toast for breakfast. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about toast. The thought is thinking about toast, and the end goal is made toast. But what are all the steps of journey from thought to made toast? Write them in the chat. Any step at all, okay? Any step. What do we have to do to get from thinking about toast to our toast made? Now, you can go as far as saying, go to the supermarket, I have no bread. Whatever that may be, start writing them in the chat and we'll see what we come up with. There's no right or wrong. This is just brainstorming. What would we need to do from thinking about toast to having our toast made? Okay, I'll give you just a minute to brainstorm a few more ideas. Yeah, keep them coming. Now, also, we're all going to have slightly different journeys, right? I'm gluten intolerant, so I can only have a certain type of bread. Have I got that bread? There's lots of different things that we can start thinking about. I keep them coming in, lots and lots of different things. Paper electric for the toaster. Okay, yep, there we go. That's another step. Lots and lots of little things. It's really great when we brainstorm in this way. Do I have a toaster? Well, it's funny you should say that. I've pulled together some of my ideas here, so we'll have a look at them. Thank you for throwing yours onto the chat. So you'll see here that I've got a variety of journeys myself. So I've got 3 journeys written here. The top one's a complex journey because they have to go to a supermarket, they have to purchase bread, then commute home, then go to the kitchen, get bread and toast bread. My middle journey there is a bit simpler. It's a generic user journey. Go to the kitchen, get bread, toast bread, and we have our toast. And then the bottom one's complex as well because they don't have a toaster and therefore they can't have toast. So we have 3 simple user journeys here, and the UX design tool, like the journey mapping, really helps you structure the information in a way that makes sense so you don't lose track of valuable insights. And no idea at this point is stupid because it's all backed up by research, because we've done our research about our user themselves, then we've thought about their journey. So any step is an important one. Have we got electric, as you've just said? You know, we're in a time where we're at home so much more, so maybe our journey would be slightly different. Then what we want to start having a look at is each section of the journey and how's our user feeling during that time. Now we've looked at that, we can identify touch points in the journey that we can map out and keep visualizing and coming back to. So let's move on to our next tool, which is empathy mapping. Okay, so it's really simple. You can just draw out that little graph on a page, or you can do it as headings. I like to do it in a little chart because it's sort of like my brainstorm thinking about it being all around the user. Okay, so the user's in the middle and we want to think about what the user says. Now this could be a quote that you've identified through interviews or research. Maybe you've read it in a feedback. We want to think about how the user feels. Remember that empathy is so important to enhancing user experience, and it's really key to mapping up their emotion. Then we want to write about what they think. Okay, now this could just be what choices have they got during the journey. So for example, with the toast, when they get to the supermarket and they have to choose bread, what bread do I want? And then we want to look at what are they doing. So what are they doing at that moment? And all of this really, really helps increase us to be open-minded, because it's really difficult sometimes when you're asked to brainstorm to suspend your bias and think what other people might want to do, because we automatically think about what we would want to do. So by doing empathy mapping, it really helps us get in the mind of our user. So it reduces that bias and it allows collaboration with research participants as well. And it helps organisations or teams accept what they see and hear, because it's not just my thought, it's words and thoughts and feelings that's come from all of these users or research. And then once we have that, we can pair it up with the user journey we just looked at, and we can pinpoint some points. Made sense in my head. We can look at particular points and think about the empathy there. So in this situation, let's have a look at how the user is feeling, right? So they have to travel to the supermarket. Well, right now, I know that there's over an hour queue to get into the supermarket, so I'm feeling frustrated as a user. Yeah, maybe they're upset because they've got to go out. It's raining, but they really want the toast, so they're going to go do it. Then they get to the supermarket and they get their bread. How are they feeling then? Well, they're feeling excited. They're feeling hungry. Then they realise there's no toaster. So now they're annoyed, or maybe they're indifferent, because remember, everybody's different as well. And it depends on how the rest of their journey's gone before they've got to there, to how much emotion maybe they'll be feeling. But you can see already, just from us talking about thinking about toast and making toast, we're able to identify friction points on that user journey. So you'll see again, I've got them highlighted in orange here. And we've got the friction points. Now, friction in user experience is defined as the instance or the instances in which a visitor experiences difficulty. Okay, so it could be with your website. The main concept here is that friction is a blockage for users being happy. Points of friction are one of the main challenges of UX, and they stop the process being seamless and intuitive, and can sometimes cause a user to take action completely and maybe come off your website. You know, think about a time where you've been searching for something, you found a company that you like, you found their website, and then you can't quite find that product that you're looking for. So what do? Probably come off of it and go back onto a search engine, and they might find another brand or another company that sells that product. So that part where they couldn't quite find, that was the bit that caused friction. So looking back to our toast thinking days, we've got friction points: travel to supermarket, commute home, there's no toaster, there's no toast. And these identify opportunities for us to start thinking about how could we make the user experience better here. What ideas could we come? So you'd start working off of that. So what have I come up with? Well, we've got some opportunities here, because we can think about who is it for. Well, it's for busy professionals, right? The brand has been designed as a result of understanding the opportunities of the user experience, and we're able to think about, well, hang on, what can we do? Let's deliver bread. We can have dietary options. We could even sell toasters. So, you know, going back to that last page, they link into those friction points. You don't have to travel to a supermarket, so we're taking away that frustration. Don't have to commute home, so we're taking away that traffic problem. Don't worry about no toaster, because we're going to offer them in our service as well. How are we going to do it? We're going to do it through application and website. And when? Well, whenever, because we're going to have adjustable delivery frequencies. So from our 3 tools that we just looked at, we're able to really generate opportunities, and that's how brand designed for users are born. And UX designers work collaboratively to make seamless experiences reality, and it's from these user-centered tools that makes it happen. Now, I am aware of time. We are whizzing through today, 45 minutes. We've got a few more minutes just to summarize things. Then I'll get some feedback from you guys, and then we'll also have a Q&A session. So there's a little taster for you, okay? So a little taster of what is UX, why is it important, and how can I start using it? What's next? Well, we've definitely not covered all the UX methods, because there are so many different ways to approach problem solving creatively. And advanced UX is actually the ability to utilize UX tools and create combinations of methods to identify and solve problems. And we've only covered the foundations of good UX today. So you might be thinking, what do I do next? Well, go and research UX methods. That's the first thing that I'd say. Go and have a look at all the different ones and see what ones you might want to use. But apply UX to your practice. You can go and use those tools in what you're already doing. So as soon as we're finished today, start thinking, how am I going to apply this UX thinking to what I do? And then do it. Give it a go, because you need to practice something. A new tool is like changing a habit, because if you think a certain way or you do things automatically, you have to really step out of your automatic to change a habit. So practice the tools and use them more than once as well. And also join more online courses. I know you're probably sick of webinars being sent to you, and there's so many courses and things online, but you're here today, you've spent that time. So if it is something that's sparked an interest, or you know that it'll be useful for you, because it's useful for everyone, give yourself that time. You know, if you're furloughed and you're looking to upskill yourself, grab some of we've got some fantastic courses on Upskill Digital. If you have got too much time and you're trying to fill it, really use that time, utilize that time. We don't want to be looking back thinking, I wish I had done more for me. Or if you're a business and you're thinking, how can I add to my user experience for my team? Apply the UX tools there too. Now, there are some great online practice tools, briefs.biz and designersize.com. Basically what they do is they'll give you a brief, and they're quite wacky briefs. You can see there, design a recipe game for driving instructors with hectic schedules. So that will enable you to really start using UX tools to come up with a solution there as well. So note them down, go and give them a go as well. And if you want some information on our other courses, head to upskilldigital.com/virtual-academy, and we've got 50% discount today on our courses. We have things like Intro to UX, so a bit more of an in-depth version of this today, remote design thinking, and AI for leaders, as well as loads and loads of other courses. Or if you're thinking, actually, I need something specific for my business, then get in touch, because we can put together bespoke courses as well. We're going to do a Q&A. So whilst I prepare for that, if you could pop any more questions you've got in the chat, and I'll have a look at those for a couple of minutes. And whilst I'm having a look at those, head over to the link that I believe's just been put into the chat box. Yep, it has. And give me some feedback. What's worked well for you today? What could we do to make things even better as well? Thank you very much for staying with me and for your input. We've still got a little bit more time, so any more questions, again, pass them over my way, fill out the feedback, and I'll speak to you in just a moment. Let's have a look at these questions. Let a few more questions coming through there. Okay, and just while you finish off the feedback, I'll start going through some of these questions coming through. I've got here, do you have a preferred UX design tool? I know that many designers use Sketch or Adobe XD. I prefer Adobe XD. I think it's just because I'm more comfortable with it, and it's one of those things, the more confident you're with something, you do tend to prefer it. So actually now I'm going to go and use others a bit more. It's always good to stretch yourself, but it's a personal preference when it comes to the tools that you want to use. With that in mind, ladies and gents, if you want to use something, there's quite a few systems that have like free trials. Tailbook is quite good, that has a free trial as well, and there's loads of different things. definitely research it, have a look, try something. If it's not for you, try something else. I think that one really is on personal preference. I have another one here. Is UX a good asset to have on a CV? Callum, I would say definitely. Think about the variety of skills that it's bringing. If we go back to think about strategic thinking and creativity, problem solving, and they're quite transferable skills. So they're great to upskill digitally now, and when we're got a little bit more normality, they're transferable to any role, I think. So definitely I would add it to your CV. What else have we got in here? We've got work in a marketing department. How can I motivate my team to adopt UX? Oh, good question. I guess the first thing would be you adopting. So are you thinking UX thinking? Yeah, because you can't really expect a team to do it if you're not doing it first. So think about your processes, and even the tools that we've looked at today. How could you improve the user experience for your team? How are they feeling? How are they feeling when they need to do something? What tools have they got to enable them to do things properly? So again, it's really about thinking about how are you going to enhance the user experience, and then having an open platform. I think open and honesty is really, really helpful with teams when it comes to UX thinking, because then people feel safe to put ideas on the table. And if you get ideas on the table comfortably, that's where teams are able to really, really grow and prosper as well. What industries are looking for UX designers? That is a great question. I would say every industry. What industries have websites? What industries have users? What industries want to enhance customer experiences? What's the difference between a company that's thriving and a company that's not, that have the same product? Because let's face it, when you decide you want to get something or you want to use something, right, as a user, we know what we want. This is what I want. Now, where do I go to get it? Well, I go online, right? And once I'm online, there's so many options. So what makes somebody keep coming back to you? A good experience. It's about how you make someone feel. That's what user experience is all about. And I'm going to wrap up now because I do believe we are right near the end. But I'll leave you with this thought. If the product is when somebody uses something, but the UX is all about how that customer feels, the more a customer feels about you, about your product, about your brand, the easier it is for them to keep coming back. And if they keep coming back, they're happy. And if they're happy, they spend more money. If they spend more money, you're happy. So it really is a continuous cycle. UX isn't a one step. It's a continuous way of thinking. Thank you again for joining us today. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel because we have got these sessions running every week. Next week, we have got a session on advanced Microsoft Teams. So live experience again at 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 21st of May. We hope to see you there. Take care, enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe. Bye.